This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com, the easiest way to get Mexican auto insurance.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Baja Sessions. Just enjoying this cooler weather. The time of year I was in Baja last week to tour the wineries, and it was super quiet down there, which meant no crowds and great views of kind of the wineries in this winter season. So if you haven't been down recently, I love going this time of year. It's, like I said, it's pretty quiet and you can really sink in. So I'm flipping the tables a little bit this week. Instead of talking to somebody that is, I don't want to say a non-Baja goer. I want to talk to somebody in this industry, and that's the podcast industry. And I've met the gentleman online, and I know we follow each other on social media, and that is Dominic, who's from talesfrombaja.com podcast. Did I get all that right, Dominic, or how's it going today?
Yeah, it's going great. You did get that right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, you originally reached out to me to be on your show, and I flipped it on you to have you on my show. I just thought the timing was good to hear your story and what you guys are up to with your podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on our podcast at some point in the future because it was, I don't know, maybe a few months ago I reached out to you. I saw what you were doing in the Baja region with Baja United Wines, and I was completely intrigued. And I think a lot of people would want to hear about what you're doing. And so yeah, we're excited about our podcast as well. We just recently launched it. It's a podcast that just talks about Baja and the people, the places that you can go, the fun things to do in the region.
So let me ask you this. Clearly, that's going to be a great resource for people as you grow your show. And thanks for wanting to have me on your show. I can probably talk all day about Baja since I've been going there since the 80s. And, we don't like to always talk about ourselves on our own show. So thank you for that. But, I'm just curious, what is your background with Baja? When did you fall in love with it? So much so that you want to do a show about it.
Yeah. My wife and I actually do the show together. And it was about a year ago. I knew that I wanted to do a podcast. I wanted to learn more about podcasting, but I wanted to do it with my wife. Mm-hmm. And so we were kicking around ideas of things that we both enjoyed doing together. And ultimately we landed on our joined love of visiting Baja. And for me, I'm a San Diego native, so I've been visiting Baja ever since I was 5 years old. My parents used to take us down to Puerto Nuevo with my uncles and my cousins. Uh-huh. And I don't really remember going down there at that young age, but they would take us down there. But then, as I got older, once I turned 18, I would go down to Tijuana and we'd go party down there. And then as I got older and had a family, I'd bring my family down. So for me, that's kind of my background of heading down to the Baja region. My high school that I went to here in San Diego, we had just a large number of kids that lived in Tijuana that commuted up to our high school in the North Park area. It's called St. Augustine High School. So we had friends that were living in Tijuana as high school, kids and everything else. So I was very familiar with the region really throughout my life. My wife, she was born in Colombia. She was born in Medellin and grew up in Bogota, Colombia. And when her mom and dad and Adriana moved to the States, they kind of settled in Texas, in Dallas. Uh-huh. And so she went through her high school years in Dallas, and then she went to the University of Texas, Austin for college. And then after college, she moved to California, first to Northern California, and then she migrated down south to San Diego. And she always kind of tells the story to people that once she landed in San Diego, the first thing she wanted to do was go to Tijuana. She wanted to go down and check out Tijuana. and she fell in love with it. I think it was a few weeks or a month after she got to San Diego, she actually went down. She fell in love with the region, and then when we met, it was a joint love, and so we've been going down there ever since we met.
You've opened up all kinds of doors, or questions at least, that I need to ask you now. So, first of all, and maybe you don't know the depth of this, but I had never realized that kids actually come up from Mexico or Tijuana and attend our schools. I think that's wonderful and a great opportunity for them. I mean, do you know any of the details about how that happens, or the availability? Is that a program that they're in? Are they just kind of jumping across, going to school and going back home for a better education?
On the public school side, I really can't speak to it. I'm not sure how that would work if, you needed an uncle or a family member that is a resident around a specific school for you to come across and get your education up here. But I went to a private school, and so at a private school, there is no, residency restrictions. Mm-hmm. So, for our school, St. Augustine, and our sister school, which is Our Lady of Peace, those kids can just come up. It's not a big deal. There's other private schools in town that, as well, a ton of other private schools. We had a real estate agent on our podcast. It hasn't launched yet, but we recorded it already. He's lived in Baja for 30 years. Both of his kids were born in Baja, in Rosarito, but both of them, once they got to high school years, they transferred to high schools in San Diego that were private high schools. So it's easily done. I'm a little older, so when I was going to high school in the 90s, pre 9/11, it was a lot easier to cross the border. Yeah. It's a little tougher today, but if you have a Century Pass, that can help alleviate your commute. So yeah.
That's great. I love hearing that. I didn't realize that that was even an option for people that they were taking advantage of. So good for them, getting a great education. All right, so the second one I wanted to ask you about is, and I understand this implicitly because I spent enough time in Baja to get this, but you talk about your wife falling in love with Tijuana. And I would love for you to tell the reasons. So, what were your thoughts on Tijuana and how you guys fell in love with that place?
Well, I think from my perspective, and I don't want this to come across as corny or anything, but I think everything in life starts with people. And, if you go to a restaurant, the food can be really great, but if the people working at the restaurant aren't attentive or they're not welcoming, it kind of puts a little bit of that taste in your mouth. And I think, with Tijuana, with Rosarito, with Ensenada, Valle de Guadalupe, Tecate, it all starts with the people. I mean, there's so many great places to see and great things to do, but it's the people for me. And I think I speak for my wife, Adriana, that really kind of, are so welcoming, that, it just feels great to go down and to visit. So that's probably, the most important thing for Adriana and I is the people. Yeah. But then, on top of that, there are just wonderful, places to go and places to eat, things to do, not only in Tijuana, but throughout, the entire region.
Yeah, and I think if anybody's been going to Tijuana long enough, you've seen it transition a few times, in the early 80s. Big party town, lots of whistles going off in the bars, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then it got overran with crime for a little bit in the early 90s. And then they really did an incredible job cleaning it up as we hit the 2000s. And present day Tijuana, I don't think it's ever been better, maybe back in the 40s and 50s, from a perspective of hospitality, restaurants, entertainment, craft breweries, wine tasting rooms. I mean, the list goes on. It really is quite an incredible place as it sits today.
Yeah, and even to build on that, not just Tijuana, but really the whole Baja Norte region. I always get a kick out of it when someone is visiting Baja for the first time, or it's been, say 20 years since they've visited, and they go and it could be them visiting Tijuana, it could be them visiting Valle de Guadalupe, it could be Rosarito or Ensenada, and they come back and they just have all these great stories to tell.
Yeah.
They're just blown away by, oh my gosh, I was eating in this restaurant, it had this outdoor kitchen, and it was unbelievable, And so it's fun to hear those stories because it's true. I mean, it's a really, really cool place, and there's just an unlimited, number of things to do.
Yeah, we like to hear the stoke from people. I always enjoy taking people to restaurants down in Baja that they least expect there to be. For example, in Mexicali, most people don't realize they have some of the best Chinese food in the world in Mexicali because the early migrants, that were moved through California down to Mexicali. And then even in the Valle de Guadalupe, you had a lot of Russian immigration around the turn of the 19th century. And so I take people to go get Russian empanadas and Russian food in the Valle there, and people are just blown away, A, that there's Russian food, and B, that it's in Mexico. So those are always fun times for me to explore and show people new things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really, really good point, with the wine in Valle de Guadalupe. Obviously a lot more than I do about it, but it's not all Mexican nationals that have those wineries. There's Russians and there's Italian wineries, and there's all different types. So it's kind of fun. Adriana went down with a friend, I want to say over the summer, for a few days, and they just kicked around Valle de Guadalupe for a few days and had some fun. And they visited a restaurant that was an Argentinian restaurant. Uh-huh. And the gentleman who owned it was from Argentina. He opened it up, I want to say 6 months ago, so maybe now a year ago. So there's all different, types of nationalities down there that have different types of businesses. There's a gentleman from Arizona, funny enough, that opened up a pizza restaurant called Ollie's Pizza in Rosarito, right next to Las Gaviotas, about 7 years ago. Wasn't ever in the restaurant business in his life, but he loves pizza, and he did a tremendous amount of research on, how to open up a restaurant, and went to Italy to learn how to, really make the pizzas in a brick oven pizza, deal. And so there's a lot of different people that are living down there that are starting businesses, and it's fun to meet those people.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Los Gaviotos for a second. First of all, for all you Southern Californians, that's not the only place to stay down there. There's a lot of wonderful other places to stay. Go ahead and venture out. But for the rest of the world, if you are looking for a comfortable place to stay and you haven't ventured into Baja before, Los Gaviotas is a great place to go, especially if you like some of the comforts of a pool and a good little surf spot and a beach and stuff like that. But I haven't been there for a lot of years. What's it like down there right now at Los Gaviotas? I always hesitate to even talk about Las Gaviotas because I don't want the word to get out too much because it is such a cool place. It's really great. I mean, there's, maybe 350 homes in the little area. They have, like you said, if it's your first time down there, you'll feel very safe and secure. They have security guards at the front gate. What I really love about it is, they have usually a few times a week, probably more in the summer times, but they have a fisherman come up and bring fresh fish out near the pool. Just buy fillets and bring it back to your house and cook it, or they can cook it for you right there. They make tacos right there for you as well. But it's one of those places where you can go there, and if you don't want to, you don't have to leave for a few days. Yeah. You could just plant your chair in the sand and hang out at the beach or hang out at the pool, play shuffleboard, whatever you want. You really don't need to leave, but it is kind of central where you can dip down and drive down to Ensenada if you want. For a day, you can go up to Playas if you want. Check out Rosarito. So it's I started going there about 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. It hasn't changed since then. I'm sure it's exactly the same as it was 20 years ago.
it's a great spot. They have made some upgrades to just like the walkways and such. So